Building a family can be a complicated, messy, lonely, and sometimes heartbreaking process. But you don't have to navigate this challenging journey alone.
Welcome to the All Paths podcast, where we support and celebrate all of the different ways there are to try to grow your family. We are your hosts, Kate and Emily from the nonprofit organization All Paths Family Building. And today we're talking with Vermont State Representative and 2025 All Paths Advocacy Award winner, Ashley Bartley, about her journey and her work in this space. Ashley, thank you for joining us today on our podcast.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much, Kate and Emily.
Well, we're really, truly so happy to have you. So, before we get into your story in a little bit more detail, we'd love for you to introduce yourself to our listeners.
Yeah, so I'm Ashley Bartley. I'm a representative. I represent Fairfax in Georgia, Vermont. We are two very small rural towns up closer to the Canadian border. And, I grew up in Vermont. It's a really special place in my heart, actually, for years. I was like, I want to get out. And then something that just changed, and I was like, I don't think I can ever leave. And found this community that we call home now. My husband and I, we've built our family. We put our roots down into our community as much as possible, and that's kind of what pushed me to run for office, understanding that there's a bigger picture here. It's not just about our small family, but the family that is Vermont, and that's kind of how this started, or really it's how I became where I am today.
That's awesome. Love that. And you're a true Vermonter. I know Vermont is one of those states where, like, even if you've been there like 20 years, you have to say, like, I'm not an original Vermonter, but
Yes, I am a fourth generation Vermonter. My grandmother is
Mhm.
very proud when she tells everybody that.
That's awesome. I love that.
So, we're absolutely going to be talking about your work and as it relates to fertility advocacy. But before we get into that, we'd love to learn more just about your own family story. Where did that all
Yeah.
begin?
So I'm blessed with a blended family. I have a bonus kiddo who's 10. Was really lucky. My husband and I have been very close friends. So even when he was born, I was able, to meet him and hold him even as a baby. And so he had, I started my relationship with my husband. He had a little one from a prior marriage. We got married in 2019, and we just felt that, something was missing. We wanted to add on. Um, my poor husband. I am the kind of person where, like, I don't think he expects to ever come home and have it be calm. It's always going to be chaotic. There might be a new dog. There might be a new animal. And so he knows this about me. And we had just celebrated our first year anniversary, and we sat down, and, like, it's just so funny. It was our anniversary lunch, and he goes, "What do you think about having a child?" And I said, "Took you long enough." Um, and so it was this idea that, like, that was our gift to each other, was like, we are ready to start the process, and, thinking, oh, this is going to be easy. People get pregnant every day and they don't even try. Um, and turns out it wasn't. It wasn't that easy. Um, Fast forward several months into our journey, I felt off, was late, was, tracking. And it's like that every day. You are peeing on sticks. You're tracking everything, your temperature, you're reading everything. Do you lie on the bed with your legs up? Do you drink
Mhm.
lemon juice? Like, of course, I read it all. I did it all. Um, and I just, like, I knew in my heart, I was like, oh, I'm pregnant. I know I'm pregnant. I'm late, but it's not showing up, and it's like this idea that you're like, okay, this is going to be easy. um Called my doctor. She said, okay, give it a few days. Still, things were a little funky. um and still couldn't figure out what was going on. And turned out, went to the doctor, had some blood tests, and turned out that I had had a miscarriage really early on in the pregnancy. And devastation is like not the right word. I was not prepared for that. Again, is like this idea that this is going to be easy. It's like the natural thing that for a woman's body to do. And it really shook me to my core. Really shook me to my core. I remember, a few months after that, my husband had signed me up for a women's retreat here in my town. Now the woman who put it on, amazing woman. She brings women together. She does these like yoga retreats, and we're sitting down, we're having these really amazing in-depth conversations in a field. Like we could see cows. It was beautiful in a field. And I remember I'm surrounded by these women that I do not know very well, and who now someone who is my dear, dear friend. And I just started crying, like this deep, deep, just sadness. I was like, what am I doing wrong? And I was like, this is what my body is supposed to do. This is what it means to be a woman is, and it's this calling. And there's this, I think we have wants and we have needs as women. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Kate
No,
does this
don't
to me. It's
apologize.
her fault
Ah!
every
I say
time.
Kate cries a lot. It's like contagious
I
when you're around
know.
her.
Great. It's
I'm sorry. Yeah.
No.
but it's this idea that like it's this, such a primal want, and I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. And just surrounded by these women who were just absolutely so supportive. And I didn't know it then. I was actually pregnant in that day,
Oh, wow.
um, and found out very quickly after that. And it was just so funny because I remember my husband and I weren't going to tell anybody. We had just suffered a loss. And I was like, I have to call my best friend. Like I'm like, I don't care. I have to call my best friend. She's gonna be here for a loss. She's gonna like no matter
Right.
what, she's gonna be there. And so we're FaceTiming her. And I go, I have to tell you something. And she goes, okay. And I go, I'm pregnant. And she looks at me and she goes, oh, thank God. And I go, what do you mean? She goes, I'm pregnant too.
Oh,
And she
oh
had
no
felt
way.
so guilty
Mm-hmm.
because she was pregnant. She didn't know how to tell me. And it was even, she's my best friend. She's practically my sister. And her actual sisters and mom were saying, oh my gosh, she was so excited for the baby. But then she had this like other grief for you because you'd been trying and she knew how much it meant to you. Um, and so I always say, my biggest piece of advice is if you can get pregnant with your best friend, do it. Even if you have
That's
to like
so,
plan it.
yeah, that is so great that it worked out that way.
Oh, it was amazing. My daughter was born a week and a half before her son, and so it's like this lifelong friendship that they now have. And so as we go and as we move forward, just with pregnancy and not really knowing what's happening to your body and the aftermath of it, it was just amazing to have her as like this staple person in my life. And then, I say, Reagan, my daughter, is really the reason I decided to run for office. I'm a high-strung individual. I am the most anxious person you might ever meet. But once I got pregnant, I was like, my body knows what to do. She knows what to do. We're good. I like pregnancy. I was like, this is the easiest thing. We're good. It's fine. I'm fine. And then homegirl shows up three weeks early, and we're on the way to the hospital. And I go, oh my God, we don't have childcare. I because we had suffered a loss, I waited the 12 weeks to be like,
Hmm.
I'm going to start putting us on childcare lists. And by the time I was in labor on the way to the hospital, we were on 10 different wait lists and hadn't heard back. Fast forward 8 hours into labor, I look at my husband and I go, so I'm going to run for office and I'm going to solve the childcare crisis in Vermont.
Wait, you decided like in labor
I
that you
In
were going to run.
labor.
That's
love
And he
that.
looks at
amazing.
me, and you know what? Props to him. He looks at me, he goes, you know what? I think maybe we should revisit it in 72 hours. I'm not saying no, but let's
That's
revisit it.
awesome. That's
Love
Um,
awesome.
it.
and we did. We were in the hospital, and he goes, so you said this thing. And I said, yeah, someone's got to fix it. Why not me?
I love that. As you were saying about being on 10 different waiting lists, I'm like, well, here's another systemic failure, not just in Vermont, but in our whole country in terms of how we handle parents and babies and children. It's like we're failing them left and right. So I'm so sorry you went through that, but there's no stronger motivator than a personal thing that has happened to you. And
Yes.
then as a postpartum mom, you're like, watch out, Vermont, because here I'm coming for you. I love it.
Yes. And that's really what happened. And I was and I mean, I don't know the first thing about childcare. Like that is and I say that and it's just but something had to change. And I'm really proud of the work that Vermont has done. We are now a leader in the country on childcare. But fast forward my first 2 weeks in the legislature, I find out that I am losing my job because I had won my election. And so I'm already going through these huge changes. I now, at this point, Reagan's going to be 1 years old. You still have those postpartum hormones that are changing, kind of falling back into place. I've just lost my source of income, and I'm sitting in my committee room, and I'm like, something's wrong. Something's wrong. I know something's wrong. And I use the restroom, and it's very, very clear almost immediately that I am miscarrying in the state house. And truly, one of the most traumatic things that has ever happened to me. And I kept it inside for so long. I didn't talk about it. Obviously, my husband was there for me. Unfortunately, my best friend, the same one who I had just had a baby with, suffered 2 weeks before with a loss.
Oh.
So we were like at the point where like, okay, we can't be pregnant together. Um, and just again, having that solidarity, having her, I don't, I've said it to her, but if she listens to this, I hope she knows how much she means to me and having somebody there. And, you know, in my position as a legislator, as I was growing my family, suffering from losses, I'm not special. I am just one person in this world. And there are so many amazing people who are working towards supporting families. And I think that's really where I got to be, where I am today, where it's, I have the most amazing support system, my family, we've grown it together, we've suffered together, and just where we are. And I'm a really lucky gal.
You are. Um, and also, I appreciate you sharing what you've been through, even though I know it's hard and emotional to remember those days. And obviously, we're so sorry that you went through those losses, but I really appreciate you sharing them because I think there's some people that kind of minimize loss. And to me, why on earth do we do that? I just think it's so individual. Even on this podcast, we've talked to people that have one loss that say is early in their trying and they just keep moving. They just like almost like and I don't know that that's healthy, but they kind of don't even process it. They're just like onward, onward, onward to the next one. And
Hmm.
again, no judgment on that. Like was their experience. But I think there's also a lot of people who it doesn't matter if it was your first pregnancy, how early in the pregnancy it was, how early you were in trying. When you're ready to be a parent and then you think it has happened and then you find out that you're miscarrying, it can be very, very emotional. And so I really appreciate you sharing that because I just think that is not uncommon, but it's just not talked about that much. And so I think people listening to this are going to hear themselves in your words. But I also love that that community of support came around you literally in that field. We
Yeah.
should have more things like that that um, surround someone when they're going through difficult times. And the fact that you had your best friend as well, it's like one of those things again where in the case of you both having miscarriages at the same time, you don't want that in common, but it is so great to be able to lean on each other. You had the pregnancy and the birth together, postpartum together, and parenting, and unfortunately having a loss at the same time. But you're there for each other, good and bad. That's friendship.
It's through thick and thin.
Yeah, that's great. But so just to touch quickly on something you said. So once you were elected to the Vermont legislature, you lost your day job. And for those that don't know, the Vermont legislature is a part-time legislature. It's not most people's full-time job to be a representative because I think, and not that your motivation obviously was pay, but don't you only make very small amount?
It's a very small stipend,
Nominal, right.
mostly, paying for gas, for
Yeah.
food, so
Yeah.
you can be there. And it's really the tradition of Vermont. We look back to when we were a bunch of farmers, and January through May is when, or really, January through March was really when it started. And it was this idea that the farmers are they can have that break during that time. They don't have to worry about feed and all of that. Um, but I had, I did lose my job, and it was because I had won my election. So Vermont does have in their state statute that if you are running for office, you can submit a letter of leave, intention of leave to your employer, and they have to honor that. Um, I never submitted that letter because I had gone to my employer. I said, "Hey, listen, I'm interested in this. I would like to still continue to work full time while I am there, just work remotely. If you're supportive of that, great. If you're not, then I'll wait. There will be another time I can run." And my employer at the time said, "No, this is great," even donated to my campaign. Um,
And then turned around and let you go?
I don't think they thought I would win. I
Mm.
think that's what
Oh,
it came down
that's
to. And so,
that's
but here
awful.
we are. I could not be happier. I think, things happen for a reason. I usually absolutely hate that saying, but I am here today because of because of that, and I'm just grateful for it. Whatever brought me here,
That's
I'm grateful for it.
I love that. Well, that's a good attitude. You got a good attitude. But we're mad on your behalf.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still salty about it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. Salty's a good word. Yeah, we're
Yes.
salty for you too.
So you talked about how your motivation to run for office was to fix the systemic issues in childcare for families. What have been your focuses since then, or in addition to childcare in
Yeah,
Vermont?
I think I'm passionate about our workforce. And if you hear me talk, if, I think anyone who knows me is going to be like, "That's not what she says. That's not usually what she says." But so I'm currently the vice chair of general and housing, where housing in the US is, again, a systemic problem. Like at this point, we are on the precipice of a crisis. And how are we going to move forward? Um, but then, especially in Vermont, where we every issue that we're experiencing focuses on housing. And additionally to that, I think we're talking about our education, our our healthcare problems. So because we do not have the inventory to house, working Vermonters, students who want to stay here, um, bringing workforce in, we have an aging demographic, so our healthcare costs are going to be higher. We don't have the kind of younger generation to pay for healthcare without needing to use it. We don't have enough students in our schools. So schools right now, it's a really big topic in Vermont. We're kind of reforming how we look at schools. Um, there's not the housing, we can't grow the grand list. And so property taxes are rising because there's this lack of students in schools. Schools are closing. So really everything in my mind kind of focuses on housing. But because of that, it's also this idea of workforce. How do we put those two together and development? But again, I'm somebody who really I can't ignore my lived experience. And so I will be the fiercest advocate for maternal and women's health. Do I know anything about it? No. I know my own experience. And so I have really been pushing forward what I consider maternal health and family health bills. My first my my first session, I introduced a bill regarding breast pumps and Medicaid, and it had support of over 30% of the House. I will say it might be because I went to every individual and said, "Do you like boobies? Do you want to support my boobie bill?" And like that is, and I ended up with an interview on the local news, and somebody had come up to me and goes, "Is your bill really the boobie bill?" I'm like, "No, but if we want to call it that, I absolutely
Whatever
will."
gets it passed, I'll call it. Yeah.
And so it was about how chest feeding parents couldn't get a breast pump until birth if they're on Medicaid. It had to do with the definition and state language. And so I really pushed it. And it was right around the time that Medicaid was um, reevaluating everybody. And so it just couldn't move forward. But I had so much support of our physicians and providers that the health agency, the agency of health here in Vermont, actually made that change without the legislation being needed. So that
That's great.
has
That's
it's
wonderful.
yeah, I'm so happy about it. It's in your second trimester, you're able to get a breast pump, which is huge. And then uh really working towards, as Kate knows, H302, which is ensuring that we have our insurance providers here in Vermont are going to cover fertility costs. And again, it's like this, I just keep going back to what do we want as a state? We want growing families. We
Mhm.
want those families who are here to not be saddled by medical debt, which unfortunately they are. It's if you have any sort of obstacle in your path to grow your family, you are paying out thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if you have any sort of, not even obstacles, but if what we had was an advocacy day this year and hearing individuals who had this calling to be a parent and yet in their journey suffered real health, serious health crises in their journey. And what they had spent prior to that and then in their recovery, it's just that's hard to recover from financially, especially
Mhm.
looking at our economy. And so I think so H302 is currently on the wall in house healthcare. I am really hopeful that it's something that we can push forward this year. Um, if I'm reelected and it doesn't get pushed forward, it's being reintroduced every year until it's passed. But I think what's really important is continuing to have these conversations. Um, you know, how do we support healthy family building in a way that is inclusive so everybody has the opportunity to build a family, to have a family. What's really frustrating to me is if someone's suffering losses, that it's that instant, well, you could just adopt.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, sure, that is an option, but it doesn't mean that's the best option for you or really what is right for your family. And I think that we need to continue to give those who are looking to build the tools, the resources, and the support. And so it's one of those passions I think that got thrust upon me. I'm not
Mhm.
sure I ever thought about half of these things 5 years ago, but I'm happy I am. And the conversations, the relationships I've had from that are near and dear to my heart.
Well, we appreciate you so much. I mean, you just definitely have taken this on with your whole heart. And, I think when you became our lead sponsor, obviously I didn't know you well enough to know that you had a personal experience that made this resonate with you even more. But also from a policy perspective, it's so intersectional with a lot of the other things you were talking about. The Vermont being one of the oldest states in the country, actively wanting to attract and retain wonderful young people and young couples and families that you want to keep in Vermont. All of these things intersect in such a way that it makes sense to have a fertility insurance law. And obviously we're determined, we're not resting until that happens. And
Yes.
unfortunately, Vermont is the only state in the Northeast that does not have one, which a lot of people don't know. And when we tell people that, they're so shocked because Vermont has been a leader on so many other things. You're a leader in reproductive health care, you're a leader on a lot of family issues and healthcare issues. And so I think people are surprised that it hasn't happened in Vermont yet. But I think, and maybe you can touch on this a little bit, and it's for some of the same reasons you just mentioned in terms of being more rural and an aging population and other things. But healthcare in Vermont is particularly, I would say, fragile and fractured right now. Can you touch
Yes.
on that a little bit? Because to me, that is really more the reason that a fertility insurance law has not happened in Vermont yet, more than the political will, because we have
Oh,
bipartisan support. I've never heard anyone who's against this except for a concern around healthcare costs and the healthcare system more broadly. So could you touch on that a little bit?
yeah, Vermont's healthcare system is in a very fragile state. We have something called the Vermont Green Mountain Care Board, and they've really worked with hospitals and providers to help regulate costs. Um, Unfortunately, it hasn't happened in a way that's feasible for the everyday Vermonter. So, on top of that, because we're one of the oldest states, we have incredibly high rates of usage of our healthcare without the lower levels of, the 21-year-old who's on insurance because you got to have insurance, but they're going to their provider once a year. They get the flu. They need a vaccine. And so the fragility of the system, I think, is really where we're suffering, or where this idea of fertility insurance is getting stuck. And the concerns about the cost, what it would do to the structure. Um, I'm somebody who believes in throwing the baby out with the bathwater sometimes. I know that's not great to say, but it's this idea that, okay, if you listen to the news any day in Vermont, housing, education, healthcare, those three go hand in hand. And I think right now, that's where our focus is. Healthcare right now is a huge focus. So why not fix it while also fixing other fractures? Because they have to go hand in hand. I'm not somebody who believes, well, let's just fix one thing and then we'll go along. The time is now. If we're making big changes, we have to start also having these conversations. And what's the hurt in having the conversation? You know, maybe it's not, and this is the thing that I absolutely love. I think we all think about like Schoolhouse Rock and how the bill becomes a law, and the bill that literally sings is, so many people don't understand how the legislative process works. And that's half of my job, is providing information. And it's this idea that as soon as a bill is on a wall, I'll get calls. You can't support this. You have to support this. Vote this way. And it's really funny because I say, that bill's not going to look anything like it does right now. And so I
Mhm.
think, let's have that conversation. It's just words. Are there other individuals who, because what happens in the committee process is we have advocates, we have providers, we have those with the experience come in and say, this is what we need. This is how we can move forward. And I think that, let's have the conversation. Maybe the language changes. But just leaving it on the wall, in my opinion, is not what we're there to do. We're here to make progress. And so I think start the conversation, getting advocates in. Our advocacy day was so huge and inspiring. And, it's funny, H302 is the bill that I hear about the most from my colleagues who are getting questions from constituents saying, hey, is this moving anywhere? Is this something I can rely on? And so I think it's, also about bringing hope that there are people in the state house who are working, who see those who are have this longing and who are working towards building a family.
That's great. Well, yes, thank you so much. I mean, Advocacy Day was incredible. That was probably one of the best days of the year for me. It was just awesome. And you were such a big part of it. And we're so grateful to you. Rep Bartley, for those that don't know, announced our group on the floor of the house, which is a really cool tradition. And everyone kind of claps and welcomes you. And that was really nice. And also not just sort of that's just kind of fun. And I love old school like state house traditions like that, but it also gave Rep Bartley a chance to give a little plug for the bill too, on the floor. So that was excellent too, strategically. Um, and it's great to hear that kind of the drumbeat of support is still there for the bill as we're entering the second year of this session. And if people are listening, how can they be most helpful in continuing to move the bill forward before this session ends?
Yeah, I think, if they're in Vermont, I think that will definitely help the most. But
Mhm.
calling their representatives, calling their senators, saying, you know, support this bill. A lot of times, I mean, I think in our first year, there were over 500 bills introduced. I would love to say I know every single bill that's been introduced on the floor. That is not the case. So if I have a constituent reach out to me saying, hey, I really want you to support this bill, or I have questions, my first thing is saying, okay, what is this bill? Where is it? Where is it at? And so call your representatives, specifically your representatives right now because it's in the House, but say, support this. Can you talk to the chair of the House Health Committee? And she won't be surprised that I'm making that plug. I
No,
talk to
I
her about
know.
it
Uh,
often.
So do I.
Rep Black is
She,
great.
yeah, she's great.
She's wonderful, but call your representatives, email us, even if you're not in Vermont, explain how important this is. As somebody who I work in human resources when I'm not in the building, and I've had so many employees, good employees that I want to retain who have either left for a coffee company that I will not name, who has these really progressive insurances, and they leave a full-time salary job with good benefits for a very part-time, not necessarily the same wages, but because they're getting that insurance. Or we have families leave entirely to go to
Exactly.
Massachusetts, to go to other states around us who are already offering this. So it's not just about growing families. It's
Yeah,
about our workforce. It's about making sure that those who want to be in Vermont can stay in Vermont. It's about making sure that parents or individuals who want to be parents and have this longing can do so in a community that will support them and uphold them in the values that we have here in Vermont. So absolutely call your representatives, email them, text them, stop them in the grocery store, get involved. If you're an advocate, say why it's important or, share your stories. I think a lot of times we have these bills where people tend to send these like cookie cutters, oh, just vote no or vote yes. And, if you're willing, share your stories. It
hmm
makes it really hard for individuals to not see the person there. It's not just a story. It's someone's life. It's who they are.
Yeah,
We have to support each other.
definitely. And last session, we spoke about this bill in the healthcare committee under the previous chair. And I remember, again, there was bipartisan support because one of the Republican members of the committee came up to us afterwards, and he really did not like, from a fairness perspective, the fact that state employees have fertility coverage, but most private insurance does not. And so, from a fairness perspective, he did not like that. And also, he believes in having more families in Vermont. So I really took that as a hopeful sign that we could, get to this goal eventually. And also just that, even though you are obviously very different states, there are a lot of parallels. New Hampshire now has had their law since 2020, and the sky has not fallen, and all I know is, like, if the costs were as extreme as some legislators would have made you think while we were trying to pass the bill in New Hampshire, they would have repealed it by now, or they would have fought back against it. We have heard nothing. People love it. And there are
Yes.
economic benefits to laws like this. I mean, again, I'm preaching to the choir. I know I don't have to convince you, but for others listening, just, you know, we're biased, obviously, but we're so grateful for your leadership
Oh, thank
on this
you.
issue and many others. I mean, you mentioned medical debt. Vermont did take action this session around
Yes, they did.
helping with medical debt. And I know you specifically asked during that process, like, this is going to help people that have infertility debt, right? And you were assured that yes, it will. So that is good to know.
Yes.
Now, like Kate said, you're the ideal person to be championing this cause. As a very proud fourth generation Vermonter, we were trying to make it so there will be other fourth generation Vermonters, or fifth or sixth or seventh. Not that they're like, oh yeah, no, my family was originally from Vermont, but then we had to leave because
Yes.
we
So
couldn't keep growing.
true.
Like, you're growing not just Vermont families, you're growing the literal future of Vermont.
Absolutely. You get it.
Thank you. Well, for everyone else who gets it too, there's some really great action steps that we've already talked about that you can take as the session kicks off this year. And correct me if I'm wrong, you did say that this could be open to non-Vermonters as well. If you don't live in Vermont, how would you suggest that those people can take action?
I think if you don't live in Vermont and you're really willing to say, like, I would move to Vermont if that's huge.
That's
I
cool.
think I say this because representatives here tend to put more weight on what their constituents are saying.
And that's true in
Right.
every state. That's true in every state for
Exactly.
sure.
But if you don't live in Vermont, if this is something that is near and dear to your heart, if you understand what this can do to change a family, a community, a state, write in. You know what? Write to me. I'm the youngest of three girls. I know how to be loud. I know how to be the squeaky wheel. Write to me, A. Bartley at ledge.state.vt.us. And I want to hear your stories. I want to share them, and I will make sure they get shared. I'll post them on my, social medias. I think the more that we share, the more that we become a community. It turns into something bigger than my story or your story. It becomes our story, and that can't be ignored.
I love
We'll be
that.
sure to put your email address in the show notes. So
Yeah,
if anybody
please do.
listening
Yeah.
wants to get on that, check the
Yeah.
episode description.
Another good thing is to share it with Vermonters that you know,
Yes.
because even, like, I live in Massachusetts, but when we were trying to pass the law in New Hampshire, I have a lot of family in New Hampshire. My mom grew up in New Hampshire. And so, a lot of them hadn't had their own fertility struggles, but they love my family and they knew that without fertility care, we would not be parents. And so they wrote to their own legislators in New Hampshire, like, not with their own story, but with mine, which is part of their family, So that really did help. So I think that's a good way to share, is just share with anyone you know in Vermont.
Yeah, it takes one person who cares because you're going to find someone else who does.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing your own family story and for all of the work that you're doing for so many families.
Of
We
course.
would love to ask you a couple questions that we asked all of our guests. So I'd love to get your take on these.
Absolutely.
And the first is, what is one thing that you would say to someone who is just starting to grow their family?
Delete social media.
I love it.
Get rid of it.
Mhm.
Throw it out the door.
Well,
Delete it. It's not going to help. There's no right or wrong way to grow a family. There's no right or wrong way to be pregnant. There's no right or wrong way to handle the journey. And we all know social media is just this beast of itself. It only shows the good, and it's just not reality. It's that idea that I can tell you the amount of times I was on social media, and it's like that idea you have a headache, don't go on WebMD. Don't do it. Just throw it out. Get rid of it until you are in a good mental health space. And even then, you don't need it. And also, have a best friend.
I love it. Well, and if you don't want to say like if you're not lucky enough to have a best friend who's going through this, because but like
Yeah.
you know what we mean. But if you don't have anybody in your existing support networks who can help you through this, come hang out with us at All Paths. Join a group. Find another
Yeah.
community that can become those best friends who can help you through this.
Again,
Totally.
A. Bartley at ledge.state.bt.us. I'll be your best friend.
Oh, yay.
Love it.
Writing
Hey,
right now to you.
Perfect.
Dear Ashley, my name is Kate, and I'm
Yeah, my name is Kate, and I'd really love to have a best friend in Vermont.
Perfect. I'm always here.
I love it. So the second question that we have for you is how can somebody show up for a friend or family member if they tell them that they're struggling to grow their family?
Don't assume. I think don't assume what somebody else needs. Ask them. And if someone tells you that they don't know what they need, just say, okay, I'll sit with you. I think a lot of times, especially if there's a loss, is people don't want to talk about it because they don't know how to talk about it. It gets uncomfortable. And so they never check in because if they check in, they have to have that uncomfortable conversation. But if you say, how can I support you? And someone just says, I'd love to get coffee. Or you say, hey, I'm about to go get coffee. Can I pick you one up? Or do you want to watch trashy rom-coms in bed? The answer is probably yes, but don't assume. Just ask, how can I help? I think a lot of times we think that just checking in is enough, or, they haven't talked to me about it, so it's not my place to ask. But how can I support you? Goes a long way.
I love it. I love that we ask that because I think sometimes really well-meaning people end up, as you said, saying and doing nothing because they're afraid of saying or doing the wrong thing. But nothing is worse. But also I think these suggestions that we get on the podcast are so accessible. And
Mm.
and and I think like foolproof. Like I feel like no one is going to be mad if you say, I love you and I'm here for you and what can I do to help or just literally send them something to get a free coffee. Like
Yes.
how can anyone be mad about that? And it's so much better than doing nothing.
Yeah. Well, this was wonderful. Before we wrap up, is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we haven't had a chance to yet?
I can't think of anything. I think, again, it's a shameless, shameless plug, but H302 is
Woo.
still on the House Health Committee wall. Um, call your representatives, call your senators, call your friends in Vermont. You have a voice, and I think I cannot pass this piece of legislation alone. So make sure you reach out and just touch base.
I love it. My last question is, do you know Noah Khan?
Uh,
That is an important question.
I don't. I would love
Sad.
to
I
know Noah
love him.
Khan.
I love him.
Um, I would absolutely love to know Noah Khan. So if you ever meet him, please make the connection.
I mean, if I do, I will, but I don't think I will.
So yeah, Noah Khan, if you are listening, yeah, get in touch.
Shout out Noah Khan.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
And to all of our listeners, including maybe Noah Khan, if you would like to get involved and help advocate for Vermont Bill H302, please don't hesitate to reach out either directly to Rep. Bartley or to us. You can find latest information about our advocacy work in Vermont and across New England on our website. And here's to 2026.
Awesome. Thank you.
We hope you'll join us next time for more family building stories and resources. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts to make sure you never miss an episode. And follow us on social media at allpathsfb or visit our website, allpathsfb.org, for more information about our work. All Paths Family Building is so grateful to the members of our circle of support who are vital to our ability to provide emotional support, education, and advocacy that is open to anyone struggling to grow their families. Today, we want to give a special shout out to our platinum sponsor, EMD Serono. Thank you for joining us for this episode. Please help spread the word so that anyone struggling to grow their family can join the conversation. It's an honor to walk with you on your family building journey. Thank you for joining us for this episode. Please help spread the word so that anyone who is struggling to grow their family can join the conversation. It's an honor to walk with you on your family building journey.